Hey everyone, this is Zach, the broker of Zach Taylor Real Estate. Today, I want to go over special stipulations. So this is a very commonly used section within the contract, and I want to go over different tips and tricks. That way, you and your client are better protected legally when it comes to filling out the contract and working deals together. So special stips is on page 10 of the contract, right above where all the signatures are, right here, special stips. And the reason this is so commonly used is because if we read right here, the following special stipulations, if conflicting with any preceding section, shall control. So that's just saying anything above in the contract. If these are conflicting, special stipulations take control. Like those are what to go by. So this is where a lot of agents use it because, again, as real estate agents, we are not attorneys. So it's very important to remember that. It's important to know we shouldn't be going through here and striking through parts of the contract, because when we do that, it can now get us outside of, hey, we're just real estate agents, to, hey, now we're practicing law and we're attorneys, and that sets us up for legal liability. Also, we do void the copyright with the Tennessee Realtor forms, because when we change this, we're now creating an entirely different form. So if you need to override anything within the pre-written text, use special stipulations. So if I click this, let me just delete this real quick. So very common examples of special stipulations are if a buyer is submitting an offer, and let's say the buyer has a house they have to sell first, and they want to say, hey, I need to sell my house first before I can purchase this new home. Can you write something in the contract to protect me? Well, that's a very common one. So we have different clauses within our company that are available to our agents. So all you got to do for us is type buyer, for example, and we have different clauses here. So here's one right here that I was just talking about. Contingent on sale of property. This agreement is contingent upon the sale and closing of the property located at, all we can do is just replace this blank. Let's say 123 Main Street. Buyer's property on or before the closing date of this agreement. If the buyer's property does not close on or before the closing date of this agreement, buyer may terminate this agreement with written notice to seller with refund of earnest money, trust money to buyer. Now, that is a pretty detailed sentence. Where did that come from? Well, I didn't create that. Other attorneys created it, and they created it and shared it with us on this additional form, RF 707, additional contract language. This is 6 pages of different clauses, contingencies that you can add within your contract, including your special stipulations. So that paragraph that I just used came from right here. This agreement is contingent upon the sale and closing of the property located at blank on or before the closing date. So we took that and just implemented it as a clause that you can add within .loop. So hopefully that helps make your guys' life a little bit easier, but check out this page. It's got six different pages of contingencies. So if you're ever confused, hey, how can I add or what's the proper wording for this? Refer to this form, RF 707. And then let me go over another quick tip with these special stips. So not everything is going to be on this. There might be extreme circumstances that are not within this form. I mean, they do have 6 pages, but something random could pop up. I want to present this scenario. So contingent on sale of property. What if I just type this under special steps? And this is how we get in trouble if we don't refer to what the attorneys have already created for us, and we try to create our own stuff. This agreement is contingent upon the sale and closing of the property located at 123 Main Street on or before the closing date of this agreement. And that's it. Well, it's contingent upon, but what happens if it doesn't close? There is no follow-up statement to that. There is no, hey, if it doesn't go through, well, who gets the earnest money? What happens? So what I like to reference a frame of mind to use when filling out special steps and creating your own clauses. Again, be careful with doing this, but if you have to, use if then statements. So let me just write that down. If then statements. So I consider this the if part. This is saying it's contingent upon the closing of the property at 123 Main Street, but there is no, okay, but then what happens? So that's where the second part of that clause comes into play. Let's just reinsert that. Add, and now you can see, here's the then statement. If property does not close on or before the closing date of this agreement, buyer may terminate this agreement with written notice to seller with refund of earnest money, trust money. So make sure you're having complete sentences. Make sure it explains who gets the earnest money. If it doesn't meet contingency, what happens? Another common one I see is property must appraise for at least, let's say 390, and the purchase price above is 400,000. Well, again, I see this very commonly, but there is no then. If it doesn't appraise, well, what happens? There's no explanation beyond that. So make sure you guys are properly filling out the special steps. Make sure it's complete sentences. And then also, to avoid any misunderstanding or be viewed as practicing law, just make it simple statements. Don't, when we start using like legal jargon, like hereunto, pursuant to, like when we start getting really complicated and overcomplicate things, it could be viewed like, hey, we're trying to be an attorney. So just keep it simple. The property must appraise for at least 390. If the property does not appraise for at least 390, buyer may terminate this agreement and receive their earnest money back. Just nice and simple. It's clear for everybody. It's in layman's terms. So that's with special steps. I also want to cover a couple different helpful contingencies that you can add. So here's one, and in this current market, you can flip the wording, but it could say buyer to pay blank of the purchase price towards seller's expenses and title expenses as identified herein, and then you can identify. Another common one is square footage. I've seen this come back where the property is listed at, let's say, 2,000 square feet. And then later on during the appraisal, it's found out it's only 1,500 square feet. I know that's an extreme case, but it was a little bit less than that, but let's just go with that. So if a square footage comes in short, if you find that out during the inspections, you can probably get out of the deal and cancel it for inspection related issues and the square footage not being right. However, a lot of times those appraisals come way outside of our inspection period. So adding something like this to say this agreement is contingent upon the actual square footage of the property being no less than X square feet. Should the appraised square footage be less than this amount, then buyer may terminate this agreement and all earnest money, trust money shall be refunded to buyer, and seller agrees to reimburse buyer for any and all out-of-pocket expenses incurred by the buyer, including but not limited to the appraisal and inspection costs. So that's a really strong contingency for your buyers to protect them in case the seller didn't properly represent the amount of square footage available within the home. Here's that contingent on sale of property. Here's for, a lot of times offers are being written sight unseen. And all that means is a property is listed and buyer submits an offer without ever seeing the home. Well, this is a way to protect your buyer as well. Approval of others. So this agreement is contingent upon somebody viewing and approving the above described property, and buyer shall notify seller or broker on or before blank that the property is acceptable or unacceptable. If unacceptable to this person above, buyer shall provide written notice within said timeframe to seller that buyer is exercising his right to terminate this agreement. All earnest money will be refunded in full, in which event all parties agree to execute all applicable documentation. So this is a really good one if you're writing sight unseen offers. It's just saying like, hey, it's contingent upon Sally viewing the property, or Susan, or whoever, you name that person, and then they have up to a certain date to actually walk through and view the home and deem that it's acceptable. So that's really good. This can be helpful if you're on the listing side. So seller's right to find suitable housing. This contract is expressly conditional upon sellers entering into a written contract to purchase or lease property acceptable to seller on or before blank date. So this one is really good, and it's got all sorts of stuff: radon, appraisal language, bankruptcy, court permission, divorce. It's got assumption of loans in here, zonings, pool, condominium, HOA. This one is really good, and this will be the last one I cover on this form, or actually I'll cover two more, this one and one other. But rental leases and review. So this agreement is contingent upon buyer's receipt, review, inspection, and satisfactory approval of all existing leases and security deposits. Seller shall have blank days from the binding agreement date to provide information. Following receipt, buyer will have blank days to review all submitted information. If after such review, buyer is not satisfied or for any reason, then buyer will notify the seller in writing and buyer may terminate this agreement. So again, this is a really good one for properties dealing with rental leases. And then the last one I want to bring up is you can do earnest money, and you could, as a buyer, to make your offer more competitive, make it non-refundable. And so you could insert this paragraph right here. And there's just so many helpful things in this. I recommend reading it at least twice, just so you know all these, you know they're at your disposal. And then again, with your special steps, if it's something that's not in here, just be careful, keep it in layman's terms, use if then statements. And then another good topic that I want to cover, and then I'll end this quick little video, is another thing I've seen within special steps is saying all days in this contract to be business days. And can you think why that might present an issue? Well, to one person, business days might be Monday through Friday. But think about banks. Banks are open on Saturdays. Or think about like Walmart. They're a business and they're open on Sunday. So saying this contract is to be based on business days, that might confuse a lot of people or create unclear timelines. So I would recommend leaving out any sort of mention of business days. Another common trend is happening, and it's like this. Let's see. Upon contract being accepted by all parties, buyer to provide $250 date night gift card to sellers within 3 days of agreement of bound agreement. So I'm seeing this as more of a trend, is like, hey, if you accept our offer, we'll send you a piece of pizza, or hey, if you accept our offer, we'll give you a $250 gift card. So those things as well, I would probably refrain from doing that within the purchase and sale agreement. If outside of that, if they want to offer them a pizza or whatever else, because when you're looking at it in context of this, the 250 date night card, well, it's a couple issues that start popping up. Again, because we're not attorneys and we throw in language that we think is okay in special steps, well, who's to define date night? Or who's to define what gift card is acceptable to the sellers? It's very vague, and it leaves you open for legal issues coming up. So I would leave stuff like this out of the contract. Another potential issue is if you leave this in, dealing with appraisers. So appraiser is going to look at the contract, and a lender is going to look at it, but especially the appraiser side of it, he has to appraise the property. And is this now part of the valuation that helped to get to that purchase price? So this can just create very confusing situations. Again, like I said, I would probably leave them out, refer to the other form that I've showed you, and you guys should be protected better within special steps. If you have any questions, you can always consult me. There is a TAR-free legal hotline that an attorney reviews, or you can seek your own counsel, but we are here to help you. There are many resources. Let me know if there's any questions you have.